Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Tanner's Favorite Things. I'm Tanner Knight, and today we're going to continue taking a look at this Squier Bullet Stratocaster, or Bullet Strat is actually what it's called, and take it apart, do a full teardown, clean it up, put it back together. And I actually kind of got a different idea as I was putting this together. I have this Warmoth neck. This is a standard Fender 25.5-inch scale length neck that I tongue oiled up and made look really, really nice, but I've never once put it on a guitar and played it. I have a whole project that is dedicated to this neck, but it just never came together. So I'm gonna put it on this guitar and see if we get any appreciable difference in sound. Otherwise, I think I'm gonna pirate the tuners from this neck because I do have a nice set of mini Grovers which should work just fine with these 6-in-line pieces of crap that have a screw down here, just like these. It may not line up, we'll see. But either way, that's kind of the idea with this video. So if you want to see what that is all about, stick around. Otherwise, there's lots of other content for you, drum, bass, guitar, you name it, on this channel. Just check and it might be there. Okay, so where do we start? Let's get rid of this so we don't cause any issues with it. Not exactly sure how old these strings are, but they're now useless. So, Stratocaster has a string through design with this tremolo. It's not exactly like a string through Telecaster that goes right through the wood, but it does go through the back of the tremolo. So I guess I could do it this way so that you can see these strings coming out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so those are all of the cut strings. Now let's unwind all of these guys and get rid of the remaining strings. Wow, this nut is cut very tightly for that E string, so that is something I'm gonna have to take a look at here, but it was stuck in there, so now it's out. I guess I can just unwind it like this now. Don't need to use the tool. All right, we are stringless. At the end, we're gonna put on a new set of Ernie Ball regular slingies, so if that's what you're into, stay tuned for that. Okay, so the next thing I want to do here is take off the neck because it doesn't go over a lot. I do believe it has 21 frets, so it shouldn't go over the pickguard a lot, but either way, I want to separate this neck from this body first before we address any of the pickups and additional hardware. So let's do that. These are very tight screws. Okay, so not very much to see here, pretty much just a couple little markings towards the top there. Otherwise, we've just got a nice maple neck with that walnut or faux walnut skunk stripe. On the inside of the pocket, it looks like this. There are markings, it's just, they don't seem to be letters, I don't know, it's just kind of like a marker, actual magic marker in gold and red, and maybe a little black smudge there. You can see there's a little white paint on the inside right underneath here. So I'm wondering if there is a white sparkle coat that goes underneath the black first, and that's how they get the sparkle in there. All right, either way, let's go ahead and proceed with the rest of this teardown. We've got a silver screw instead of the black one, so that's an incorrect screw, but it seems to fit, and it looks like the right threads and size and everything, so I'm not too inclined to replace it. I don't think I have any black screws to replace it with, So we'll just kind of keep it in that position here. It kind of remained hidden until I just saw it that second anyway, so that's probably a good sign. So I think that's it. We do have one right here, but I think that's actually a height adjust for this pickup, and I am correct. So we are free and clear, but does not feel like we've got a lot of wire to work with. Okay, we can flip it over here, but just very carefully, this gray wire is our culprit here. So let's see if we can take a look and discern anything about this circuitry to see why these tone knobs seem like they're not in there. All right, so you can see our 5-way switch here, which everything appears to be in order there. And we do have everything wired up to our tone pots. So I don't know what's going on here. It seems like we're missing some tonal adjustments with these tone pots, but maybe they're just that crappy, and maybe that's the weak spot of this guitar. But we do have some little flyaways on the pickups. So let's take a look at the pickups now. But if you do have any suggestions for me to look at here, let me know. Everything else looks pretty solid. H. So that's about all I can rotate this thing, so that's all you get. But it does say PTP 2002 EG4 BLKR. So I don't know, is this a 2002 humbucker in this thing? This is definitely a later guitar than that, but interesting dating on that humbucker there. Maybe it's not a date code, maybe it's just a coincidence, because these ones actually do say PTP 1003 and 1004. So yeah, I don't think that's a date code after looking at that. I think that that's probably a serialization or something, or a model indicator. But you can see our pull pieces are not fully waxed or potted in there. They're just kind of individually up in there. But yeah, they're the 1003 and the 1004. So these single coils are pretty much the same. It appears that we have a yellow and black, white and black, and then a green, which the humbucker probably, I don't know what the deal is with the grounding on the humbucker, but maybe it's part of this single green. But interesting routing. And speaking of routing, let's take a look at the actual routing on the guitar body. So really nice routes and well shielded. There's kind of a little bit of router chatter or dull router business in here, but it gets shielded over pretty heavily with that shielding paint. Looks like you can see a ground in there, maybe. We also have a ground off to the frame right there. So that's our main ground. And then this must come out of the jack somehow. This must be the ground for the other pickup or set of pickups there. But there you go. We do have space for another humbucker here, so if you wanted an HSH, I guess that's a possibility for you. Interesting. Otherwise, you can see a little bit of the white under here, which again indicates that there's like a white layer under this black. Pretty cool. This thing is pretty filthy, so let me go ahead and remove the bridge, take out the jack plate and the strap knobs, and yeah, we'll go from there. So bridge next. With the Stratocaster trem, there are springs that need to be detached. Probably should have done that first. Whoa, that's interesting. That is actually routed right through the spring. Guess we will remove that one that way. Interesting choice. Well, either way, our bridge is free now. And it is this cheap pot metal guy here, to which a magnet will definitely not stick. Otherwise, I like that they have individual saddles. That's always a nice touch. They don't have to do that on these Squiers. They could, in all reality, just put a cheaper, like 3 saddle deal on there and call it good. Otherwise, no markings. Okay, let's see what's under the jack plate. Luckily, all of these screws are the same that go into the body of the wood, except for the bridge. Screws obviously are different, so there won't be any confusion putting this thing back together. Nice touch. Okay, we don't have a terrible, I guess we do have quite a bit of cord here, but that's what this cavity looks like. Nice and shielded. Got a lot of dust in here, so the first thing to do is, well, I gotta remove these strap buttons here. They're pretty loose anyway, so they need a little tightening, but I'll just take them out for now. That one doesn't want to come out. I'm gonna go ahead and leave it rather than strip anything. It's good enough. Okay, so now we want to give this thing a nice wipe down. For this process, I've been using Music Nomads 1. I use this for guitar and drums recently, so nice little product. Let's go ahead and clean this sucker down. Smells good. Yeah. One thing QC oriented that I noted, this jack plate was drilled just with enough bite in that wood before it had to be redone. This one's pretty low, and this one's also very low to match. So it doesn't affect how it plays or even how it looks, because it is completely hidden when this thing is in place, but it is just barely in that wood. So now that we've got that looked at, we can polish this a little bit. Okay, and the last part is under the pick guard over here. That's a pretty nice finish. That's one that I wouldn't mind seeing on a Fender USA product, or I guess Fender Mexico would be fine as well. But I think that that is looking much better. I guess let me put a little dab on the pick guard and just give her a little scrub as well. The good news about this pick guard, and even this finish in general, is that it hides the sins of filth much better than just a standard black guitar, which usually has more of a white or minty pick guard. So both of those tend to show dirt much more so than this guitar and pick guard. All right, so now that all of our top has been cleaned and it's looking nice and shiny, I'm gonna put the pick guard and the jack plate back on, just because I don't want it flopping around when I flip it over and do the back side. So we're gonna go ahead and do that first and then get the sides and back. Don't want to do this one too tight, that's for sure. Otherwise, all the rest of them should be standard torquage. All right, next comes the pick guard. All right, I feel a bit safer and more secure flipping this thing over and addressing the back now. So let's do that. Whoa, got some filth here. So while I'm doing this, I'm gonna start putting some liquid on this fretboard and just let it soak in here. Usually on a guitar, if you're gonna clean it, deep clean it, you should leave the polish for a little bit. But on the poly finish, it's actually not necessary. So I'm just gonna go ahead and spray this here and make sure we can moisten this fretboard up quite a bit. That's what it looks like. Now I'm gonna let that sit while I finish the rest of this guitar body, and that should be well conditioned by the time we're ready to address it. All right, so we are coming together nicely. There are a few scuffs up here that are becoming a little more apparent now that it is clean. So that is one of the downsides to cleaning, is that you'll definitely uncover a few sins here. But otherwise, it's not terrible. The front is definitely cleaner, but we have a little ding here and a couple along the edge here. So just very tiny, but worth noting for sure. All right, now all of the mist has disappeared from this thing, and we are left with a nice, shiny Squier body. Okay, I think I can reassemble the strap button at the end. That's not entirely the tightest. Feels like it's a little stripped, but it's sticking. There's no movement now, but I don't trust its veracity over time. Okay, so now let's replace our springs. This is kind of a weird situation here. I don't know why they did that, but again, this ground wire is wired through the friggin' spring. So let's go ahead, and I think we're probably gonna have to do it this way first and then get that last guy. So there's one. This one was in the middle. This block looks like it's just about to crumble. It's not the strongest metal, so don't put too much faith in it, and if it breaks by you doing this, don't be terribly surprised. There we go. And how in the hell are we gonna do this one? That last one sure is stubborn. I guess I could have undone the screws here, so in the future, there you go. Okay, otherwise, let's try to get this ground wire away from the spring as much as possible. Maybe like that. And give it one more wipe down now that I've manhandled it. The good news is that once you do a good first wipe, these smudges come off relatively easily on a second wipe. Stay. Okay, now the back plate. All right, so before we put the Squier neck on there, which is still soaking, by the way, let me put another layer on there. There we go, just saturate that a little better. I want to put this neck on here first and string it up and see what we get. So, luckily we've got our standard Fender 4-bolt situation. It fits right inside of the neck pocket and automatically looks badass. Okay, let me give this a quick buff. There we go, Squier. That hole seemed to line up. Let me dig this one a little bit deeper. And before I torque that down, let me get a little more tension on these back screws here. See, that's why I love Fender products, because you can have a non-Fender product. This is not licensed by Fender. It's just cut to the same dimensions as Fender, and it's pretty much plug and play. So that makes this thing look a lot cooler, that's for sure. But don't get me wrong, I did say in my previous video that this fretboard is really the highlight of this guitar, and I stand by that. Once we wipe this off, then I think we're gonna get a little more beauty out of it, but let's just let that sit even a little bit longer. No harm right there. Okay, so now we've got everything screwed back together. It's just a matter of stringing this bad boy up and seeing what she sounds like. Okay, she's all together with the new neck, and I'm not going to clip the strings just yet because I am going to replace the Squier neck after we do a little sound test with this guy. But let's hear what this thing sounds like all tuned up. All right, here we are with the same setup that we had before, only a different neck on this guitar. And by before, I mean the previous video that we talked about this guitar and introduced it to you. So if you have not seen that video, it will be linked in this description as well. Go ahead and check it out first. But either way, this is what it sounds like with the new neck. I think based on the first strums that I've made, it makes a difference. It sounds fuller and a little rounder, so here we go. Please keep in mind that these are brand spanking new strings. They have just been put on, so they got a little bit of stretch left, so we're probably going to be out of tune here, but I've tried to stretch them a little bit. But please just keep that in mind. So here we go. So the action is a little high in these kind of higher frets here. I'd say that's across the whole neck, so chances are the truss rod needs to be adjusted on this. Actually, I haven't even looked at that. Yeah, this neck has a pretty good twist in it, so I'll have to address that. The truss rod is very accessible. It's actually right here. That little dot right there, that's an Allen wrench. So I'll have to take a look at that off screen. I'm not gonna put too much effort into that just because this is more of an experiment. Just wanted to string this thing up and see if it could actually play. And these lower notes, they ring out just fine. So for metal, maybe this is probably the preferred neck. Let me go ahead and add some juice. Here's the Nautaclon. Pretty respectable. Now that we have this thing wired back up, let me see if the tone does make a difference. It doesn't seem to affect the sound on either dial, so I'm not sure what's going on there. You know we got to hear what the metal zone sounds like. So the tone does affect the single coil, but not the humbucker. Interesting. It's really dark. This thing darkens up the sound of this guitar considerably more than I expected. This is maple. This is roasted maple, so interesting. Middle position. We're losing our tuning here. Overshoot it a little bit and let's see if that compensates. Position 4. Very dark. Position 5. So that's all positions on this Squier guitar. I think the humbucker is by far my favorite. So there you go. That's with this Warmoth roasted maple neck. Again, it's a bolt-on, so it has that characteristic. It has the characteristic of roasted maple with a roasted maple fretboard. It's a really nice neck and one I've wanted to do something with for a while. But I think let's go back to the Squier neck. I gave it an extra squirt in the meantime, so it's probably ready to be rubbed. Let's go ahead and swap her out. Okay, we've had our fun with this neck. Let's go ahead and string up. Well, before we do that, let's take a look at it. Got mostly soaked in. I'm gonna give it one more spritz and then we'll wipe her down. What a crazy beautiful fretboard. Just take a look at that. Most Fenders would love to have a fretboard that looked like this. So luckily these frets are nice and shiny, so I'm gonna leave it at that. Let's go ahead and swap out this neck and see if we can address the tuners. All right, let's swap these necks out old school style. All right, she's back with the Squier neck and everything is looking good. Let's go ahead and string her up the old-fashioned way and then we'll get to the playing demo. All right, all strung back up, but before we get to the playing demo with the Squier neck, once again, it's lunchtime.
One humongous meal later.
All right, so we are all back together with this Squier Bullet Strat with the original Squier neck, and it feels really good. Again, I just have to say it feels really good. So automatically, it's brighter with this maple neck. So this is a dark amp, like I said, we're in the Marshall Plexi 1987X, and it could use a bit more treble. I got it cranked pretty high, but that's just the nature of it. So otherwise, this guitar sounds and feels great. The original neck is fully reliefed perfect. It does not have any twist to it. It looks great. So a really, really great guitar. And newly cleaned up, looks like $1 million. You've already heard what this thing sounds like, so let's just leave it with just the Nauticlon as our crunch pedal. Everything else, just going straight through the Marshall. So let me know if you'd like to see anything else with this guitar. I think it really punches above its weight, as I mentioned in the previous video. It's got a very premium feel for being a Squier kind of lower end instrument. And I hope that this makes everybody kind of sit up at attention when talking about Fender or Fender Japan, Fender Mexico, Fender USA, and maybe add Squier to the mix if you're actually looking for a high quality guitar. Of course, these are hit and miss. I'm not saying every single one is rock solid like this one, but this one must have been made on a Monday or Tuesday when they were really revving to go, and it has that mojo with a really nice rosewood fretboard, and otherwise nicely appointed. I don't think there's anything that needs to be upgraded outside of the tuners. They're not terrible, but they're the weak point in the guitar so far. Otherwise, I would say it's a really solid buy. So let me know if you have this guitar, if you like it or dislike it or anywhere in between, and hopefully we will see you on the next one. Always like and subscribe, and we will see you on the next one.